Have you ever stopped to wonder how your phone, your laptop, your smart TV, and everything else can all use the same Wi-Fi at the same time and not just turn into a garbled mess? Well, it's not magic. It's actually a set of rules, and they're surprisingly similar to how we manage conversations in a really crowded room. These are called multiple access protocols. So let's pull back the curtain and meet the invisible traffic cops of the internet.
I mean, seriously, think about it. You're in a busy airport, a packed lecture hall, or maybe even just your own home with a dozen gadgets running. They're all trying to use the same connection, the same airwaves. How on earth do they coordinate so they're not constantly just talking over each other? This is one of the most fundamental challenges in all of networking.
The easiest way to picture this is what's called the cocktail party problem. Imagine you're in a room packed with people. If everybody just starts shouting at the exact same time, what do you get? Just a wall of noise, right? No real conversations can happen. Well, it's the exact same thing in networking. When two or more devices try to send data at the same time on the same line, their signals just smash together and get corrupted. We call this a collision, and avoiding or at least managing these collisions is really the name of the game.
So how do we solve this? Well, the very first attempts were, let's just say, a bit chaotic. They took the simplest approach you can imagine, a total free-for-all. This is known as random access, and the core idea? Basically, just go for it. Start talking, and we'll figure out how to clean up the mess when you inevitably crash into someone else.
And this brings us to the granddaddy of all these protocols, Pure Aloha. It was developed for some of the first wireless networks out in Hawaii, and its rule was just beautifully simple. If you have something to say it. Send your data. That's it. Then you just listen for a little confirmation, what we call an acknowledgement. If you don't get one back, you just have to assume a collision happened. And here's the crucial part. You wait a random amount of time, and then you try again. That randomness is everything, because otherwise the two devices that collided would just try again at the exact same time and collide forever.
But here's the big weakness with that simple approach. It's this idea of vulnerable time. See, for your data packet to arrive safely using Pure Aloha, the line has to be totally clear, not just when you're talking, but from the moment right before you start until the moment you finish. This means the window of time where a collision can actually ruin your message is twice as long as the message itself. That is a huge window of vulnerability.
And the result of that huge vulnerable window? Yeah, this number right here says it all. Even in a perfect world, under the best possible conditions, Pure Aloha tops out at just 18.4% efficiency. Let that sink in. That means over 80% of your network's potential bandwidth is just gone, lost to the chaos of collisions. I mean, it works, but wow, is it inefficient?
Okay, so engineers knew they could do better. So they made a simple but absolutely brilliant tweak. They thought, what if we just add a little bit of structure? What if we divide time into these little slots, and everyone agrees you can only start talking at the beginning of a slot, right on the beat. And just like that, you've got slotted Aloha. And just look at the difference that one little rule makes. By forcing everyone to start on the beat, you completely get rid of the chance that someone could start transmitting and interrupt you halfway through your message. Now a collision can only happen if two devices happen to pick the exact same starting slot. The vulnerable time? It's been cut right in half.
So what does cutting that vulnerable time in half do for your efficiency? Well, as you can see right here, it exactly doubles it. Slotted Aloha's maximum throughput jumps all the way to 36.8%. Now that is a massive improvement, just from one simple rule of synchronization. But we can still do a whole lot better.
The next big step in this evolution was to add some basic etiquette. The same rule we teach toddlers. Listen before you speak. In the networking world, this is called Carrier Sense Multiple Access, or CSMA. It's simple. Before you transmit, your device first senses the line to check if anyone else is already talking. If it hears silence, you're good to go. If it's busy, you wait your turn.
But just listening before you speak isn't totally foolproof. See, because of the tiny amount of time it takes a signal to travel across a wire, two devices on opposite ends of a network might both listen, hear silence, and start talking at pretty much the same time. The solution? Listen while you speak. This is CSMA with collision detection, CSMA/CD, and it was the engine that powered classic Ethernet for years. The moment you detect a collision, you immediately stop talking. You blast out a jam signal to make sure everyone else knows, and then you back off and try again later.
Now here's a really cool consequence of that listen while you speak rule. To guarantee you can actually detect a collision, your data packet has to be big enough that you're still talking by the time the sound of that collision travels all the way from the farthest end of the network back to you. This physical constraint is the exact reason why the minimum size of an Ethernet frame is 64 bytes. It's not a random number at all.
Okay, so the whole free-for-all strategy got smarter and smarter, but at the end of the day, it's still based on fighting for access and dealing with collisions. What happens when the network is just consistently busy and you need a lot more order? Well, that's when we move on to our second big strategy, taking turns politely. We call this controlled access.
With this approach, there's no more guessing, no more chaos. Devices need permission to speak, and there are basically three main ways they get it. You can see the analogies here. With reservation, it's like booking a conference room in advance. You schedule a time slot to talk. With polling, you've got a central moderator, like a teacher, who goes around and asks each device one by one, "Do you have anything to say?" And with token passing, it's like passing a talking stick around a circle. You can only transmit when you're holding the special digital token.
But what if you don't want to take turns, and you definitely don't want to risk collisions at all? Well, our third major strategy is to just get rid of the problem of sharing altogether. The whole idea here is to divide the resource, the channel, so that everybody gets their own private line. This is the divide and conquer approach, also known as channelization. The first way to divide and conquer is by frequency. With FDMA, or Frequency Division Multiple Access, the whole radio spectrum gets sliced up into smaller, separate channels. Each user gets their own private frequency to use. It's just like old-school radio stations. You tune into 98.7, I'll tune into 101.1, and we will never interfere with each other. It's simple, and it completely eliminates collisions.
The second way is to divide things up by time. This is TDMA, or Time Division Multiple Access. Here, everybody shares the same big frequency, but they take turns in a super fast repeating cycle. You get the first microsecond, I get the second, somebody else gets the third, and then boom, it's your turn again. This is the technology that was the foundation for things like the GSM cellular networks.
And that brings us to the most mind-bending method of all, CDMA. With code division multiple access, everybody talks at the same time on the same frequency. So how does that even work? Well, each conversation uses a unique, secret mathematical code. To an outsider, it all just sounds like random static. But if your receiver knows the right code, it can magically pull out one specific conversation from all that chaos. It's like being in a room where everyone's speaking a different language, and you can just tune your ear to listen to only the one you understand. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So, we've got these three totally different philosophies for handling network traffic. You've got the free-for-all, you've got taking turns, and you've got divide and conquer. And these aren't just abstract ideas in a textbook. They are the engines running the communication technologies that we all use every single day. So I think the biggest takeaway here is that there's no single best strategy. It all depends on the job. The free-for-all of random access is perfect for the bursty, unpredictable traffic you get on Wi-Fi and Ethernet. The orderly taking turns of controlled access is vital for things like industrial systems where you need absolute guarantees. And the divide and conquer of channelization is just ideal for our cellular networks, which have to handle thousands of simultaneous calls without a single collision.
And that brings us to a final thought. The next time you're sitting in a crowded coffee shop and your Wi-Fi is just crawling, now you'll know exactly why. It's that free-for-all strategy, CSMA, getting totally overwhelmed. All of those laptops and phones are listening before they speak, but the line is constantly busy. So they back off, they wait a random time, they try again, and it just creates this massive digital traffic jam. It's the cocktail party problem playing out right there in your coffee cup.